Good afternoon. My name is Audrey Boedeker, and I'm a fourth-year student at the University of the Cumberlands. For my capstone project, I chose to look at AI invading the classroom, more specifically using AI to detect AI. Now, what does this mean? In late 2022, a large language model artificial intelligence known as ChatGPT took the world by storm. The creation of ChatGPT did make educators very paranoid, as they were worried that students were going to be using this AI to generate texts and submit them as their own, committing plagiarism. As such, a market was created and AI detectors were born. An AI detector is, like I mentioned, a large language model AI as well. They analyze pieces of text in order to determine if something is positive for AI. To do this, they scan syntax and vocabulary to determine the likelihood of the text being AI generated, as well as submitting or comparing what was submitted with thousands of other combinations found across the web, looking for any sort of similarities that can be marked as positive detection of AI. For this project, there were two questions that were primarily being researched. One of which was, are AI detectors able to accurately detect whether a piece of text is AI generated or human generated? My other question was, does a paid AI detector subscription garner more accurate results? Before being able to truly study the two questions I had to conduct a literature review. The following are some key takeaways. First of which was, AI detectors were created as a response to AI generators, thus putting them at an advantage. With both AI generators and AI detectors learning from experience, the one that was created first will have more experience, giving them a tactical advantage in this case. Similar research has been conducted to what I conduct in this project, where human written and AI generated texts were submitted to AI detectors. From the research I did, no AI detector was concluded to be 100% accurate. That's not to say they don't exist. It's just from what I've read and experienced, none of the ones I examined did. Additionally, like previously mentioned, writing style, syntax, and vocabulary all make students' work vulnerable to being flagged as AI generated. This proved to be especially harmful for non-native English speakers who speak and write very rigid English, typically in the style seen in textbooks. For this project, a research method did have to be selected, and I chose a quantitative research method. Why was this selected? Because when examining accuracy, you were looking at numbers. More importantly, you're looking at the percentage of accuracy, and I wanted to be able to compare them with one another. For this survey, for this project, I did end up using a survey. This survey was available for participants June 15th through July 7th, 2025. Once July 7th had occurred, the survey was no longer available to participants, and then text submissions were then able to be put into a Word document and numbered, so each text submission had a place, as well as they were then submitted through AI detectors. This all occurred July 8th through July 18th, 2025. Where was this survey posted? It was posted across several platforms, them including TikTok, Reddit, and Survey Circle. TikTok, the link was posted in the comments. Reddit, I searched several common survey taking forums and posted a link there. And then Survey Circle is actually a website where you can post your own research and surveys and have others take your surveys. As for the survey itself, I did have a couple of requirements I wanted to start my survey with going into it. Now, this survey was conducted via Google Forms. I selected this platform because I liked it was free. Anyone could access it, and I was able to customize it to my exact needs. For this customization, I did have a couple of screening questions. I really wanted this survey to be available to people who had taken college and dual credit courses within the last 5 years. Because this survey was posted on social media, I wasn't exactly able to screen the people then, so these questions served to do it when they entered the survey. I also informed participants of where their research was going to be used. I let them know straightforward that it was going to be submitted through AI detectors, which is also an AI. And with AI being such a touch and go subject for some people, I wanted people to have the opportunity to learn about what I was taking their work for and where it was going to be used. Should either of these questions been returned with a no, they were kindly asked to leave and thanked for their time. As for the survey itself, there were several questions as well as a single prompt that I wanted to collect. This prompt is what was later entered into a Google Doc where I was able to record all the different answers I had. As for the prompt, I asked an opinionated question, hoping that no one needed to do any research and that I was able to prevent the use of AI in order to make sure my writing samples were as guaranteed to be human generated as I could. My prompt asked, what piece of technology do you think has had the greatest impact, either positive or negative, on the world and why? I also would like to mention that I did have a character requirement. I required at least 650 characters. I understand while that sounds like a lot, for some people it did come out to be 100 words or less in some circumstances. Following that writing prompt, I did have a couple of follow-up questions for my survey. I asked participants if they had used a search engine or AI to answer the prompt. I asked if they had ever submitted AI-generated text as their own, and had they ever experienced their human-generated text being flagged as AI, and if they had, what kind of effect did it have on their grade? And then, as I mentioned before, I used Survey Circle, and in order to use Survey Circle, I did have to have an option where I could redirect participants to receive their credits on the website. So I did ask a question of whether they use Survey Circle or not. Once I had collected all my prompts, I then needed to decide how I was going to incorporate AI-generated responses into my research. So I decided for every 5 participant submissions I received, every 5 human participant submissions I received, I would then generate 2 AI-generated responses, one of which from ChatGPT 4.0 and the other from Gemini. As for the results of my survey, I received 11 participants, so I had 11 human submissions. However, only 10 of those submissions fit the criteria needed to continue. I also am including the results of those questions I answered on the I asked on the survey. We did receive some responses of people having used AI-generated text as their own. There was actually a couple of people who used a search engine or AI to answer my prompt. And then there was a mixed review of whether or not anyone had had their own human-generated text being flagged as AI. Now, where to go from here? Once I had gotten to this point, I had determined with my 10 human samples, I would need 4 AI-generated samples total, 2 of which would be from ChatGPT 4.0 and 2 from Gemini. The next couple of slides are going to show you what those responses were. So when I submitted my question to ChatGPT 4.0, I asked in at least 650 characters, which was also the requirement for the human-generated submissions, can you answer the following question in complete sentences? What piece of technology do you think has had the greatest impact, either positive or negative, on the world and why? As you can see, very similar to what I asked humans to respond to. And then as a follow-up, I asked it to give me a different response. Gemini did have an issue where it provided me with bullet points. So in my request, I did have to make sure I specify I wanted a coherent piece of writing. So this is the first submission I got from Gemini, and this is the second one. Once I had received all of these submissions, they were then placed into a Word document and numbered. So each random submission was given a number 1 through 14. These numbers were then randomized. This was done to make sure that none of my AI-generated texts were going to be submitted back to back through these AI detectors to prevent any bias detection. In order to generate this number list, I use random.org. As you can see, here is the results it would returned. And then I put those results into a graph or into a chart. And so you're able to see, here are the 4 AI detectors I used: Originality AI, Grammarly, GPT-0, and 0GPT. The numbers below are the order of which the human-generated and AI-generated writing prompts were submitted through these AI detectors. The data would be classified as a true positive, where AI-generated text was detected as AI-generated; a true negative, where human-generated text was generated as, or was determined to be human-generated; a false positive, where human-generated text was determined to be AI-generated; a false negative, where AI-generated text was determined to be human-generated; and undecided, where an AI detector was not able to decide. The following frame is going to be what it looked like when I submitted it through the first of my free AI detectors, GPT-0. Here you can see a prompt I submitted, and the response I received was that this was human. I then took these results and put them into a Excel sheet. And as you can see, the numbers 1 through 10 are written in orange. These are all my human-generated writing samples. 11 and 12 are green. These are ChatGPT writing samples. And 13 and 14 are in magenta, and those are going to be our Gemini writing samples. It's at this point I would like to point out that if I received an overall percentage of AI being 0 to 33%, it was a negative detection. If it was 34% to 66%, it was labeled as undecided. And anything that was 66% and above was positive detection of AI. This pie graph here just simplifies the results we see on the left. You're going to see 2 arrows pop up. These are anomalies I had in my results, where I had a human-generated text being determined to be AI-generated, and an AI-generated text being determined to be undecided. Overall, we had an accuracy of 12 out of 14. This is 0GPT, sorry. This is what it looked like when I submitted another one of our responses, and as you can see here, it has a 12.64% likelihood of being AI detected. On this one, the only anomaly I saw was number 4, once again, where it was given a positive detection of AI. Thus, this one being 0GPT had a result of 13 out of 14 being accurate. Grammarly, which is the first of our paid ones, looks like this when you submit your texts. And this one did have 2 anomalies, both of which were from ChatGPT. As you can see here, the yellow one was determined to be undecided, and the other one was given a negative detection. And these anomalies did give us the result of 12 out of 14% being correct. Or 12 out of 14 being correct, I'm sorry. Lastly, we have Originality AI, which was also another one that featured a paid subscription. And this one did give you a percentage of it being human-generated versus AI-generated. As you can see, this one only has 1 anomaly, and 0 of the writing samples were determined to be undecided. That anomaly being number 4, once again, is highlighted by the red arrow, giving this one 13 out of 14 being correct. All of the previous results were then turned into true positives, true negatives, false positives, false negatives, and undecideds, and they were put into a chart that was easier to read. What went wrong? I did have 1 human-generated writing sample that returned as AI-generated several times. I'm curious to see whether or not that was someone who had actually used AI. But beyond that, there's nothing I can do. In order to combat that, I made sure I marked the anomaly, and I'm very forthcoming. I do not know who submitted it, and I cannot verify it beyond what I already have. As for future research, I would just say try to get it out there. Maybe email some colleagues. I say email some colleagues because I really struggled to gain enough writing samples to even complete this project. I think trying to get your survey out to as many people as possible is incredibly important. Being an online student, I was limited in the people I had to talk to about this, but I definitely think either trying to get your survey out as far as you can, as early into the process as you can, or even making it available to people who weren't college students in the last 5 years, or even collecting writing samples from older texts that are free for use on the internet would all be better possibilities than what I pursued for this project. In conclusion, each of the AI detectors I used, both paid and free, did have some anomalies in them. There were at least two of which that had a margin of error of 86%. That's not terrible. It's not perfect, but it does beg the question of, are these AI detectors enough alone to determine whether or not a student uses plagiarism?